got the cornfield calm, Midwest tone, but he's spitting facts like a dog with a bone. Lanky frame, fire-haired, eyes on the case, breaking down the game in the darkest place. Sports scores to murder boards, Hoosier logic cuts like swords. From Friday lights to chalked out lines, this redhead's brain rewrites the lines inside the Hoosier mind, where the stories twist and stats unwind. He's a legend in flannel, mic in hand, digging deep where few can stand. From touchdowns to crime scenes raw, he's got the truth in every draw. Yeah, step in if you dare to find what's brewing inside the Hoosier mind. He'll talk Pacers, Colts, or Colts on trial. Hoosier humor with a devilish smile. He's that redhead sleuth with a box of clues. Takes your headline, breaks the news. With every stat and every scream, he's painting portraits in your stream. Don't blink, he'll tie it tight. From game night wins to murder flight. Inside the Hoosier mind, where the facts hit hard and the lines are blind. He's a ginger ninja, smooth and slick, cracking cases play by play quick. From courtrooms to the hardwood floor, he digs for more than just the score. Tune in and don't rewind, you're deep now inside the Hoosier mind.
All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome into Inside the Hoosier Mind, brought to you in part by Military Broadcast Radio, helping give veterans a voice. I'm here with two fantastic gentlemen. Gentleman by the name of Porter Hayes, who's been on the show, co-host of the HAWG Talk podcast, talks about everything that is Arkansas. If it's a sport in Arkansas, he's cover it. And then just north of that, all the way at the top of that little strip there in the Midwest, we have Mike Hughes, the shy kid from Chicago. Same thing, except he covers everything that is Chicago. I don't know about the whole state of Illinois, but at least the important part of Illinois that is Chicago. That's what he covers, at least.
He don't go south of Kankakee.
No, it don't happen, brother. I will not talk ILL football, nothing. It's I already got the Bears letting me down. I can't have another Illinois football team.
What about Northwestern? I mean, they're there.
I mean, Northwestern's there, but with all the allegations lately about Northwestern, I would rather not be attached to anything Northwestern's doing. They're also horrible at football as well. So like you can't be a horrible person and a horrible athlete. You know, Tony, you and I said like in the NFL, you can only be one. You can only be, like Justin Tucker can miss all the field goals in the world, but once he's a shitty person next to that, you're out of here, bro.
Yep.
You're out of here.
That's very true. That's very true. We have a special episode, though, because there's only really kind of two major sports going on right now. I know soccer is also going on in the rest of the world, but I'll be honest, every time I try to get into soccer, I can either never find the game or it's like 4:00 in the morning because they're playing over in like another country, which is fair because I mean, that's their time. They don't really have to play to ours. I'm like, I'm not getting up at 4 a.m. to watch a soccer game, but we do have the WNBA, who has obviously taken quite a bit of heat the last couple of years as far as gaining traction and whatnot. And the two gentlemen here on the screen with me are avid women's basketball fans. Porter, I'm sorry, I'm going to age you a little bit. He's got a little bit of years on Mike and I as far as following women's basketball. He has followed this for years, watching the women's UConn Huskies team be honestly probably one of the greatest sports dynasties across any sport, men's or women's, for as many championships and for dominant as they've been for a long time. And then obviously Mike kind of helped breaking the barrier too for a lot of the younger generation getting into the WNBA women's basketball and whatnot. And so Porter brought up the idea of why not do a show together and why not ask probably a question that doesn't really get asked for women's basketball, but who is the GOAT of women's basketball as it stands right now? Because I know for a lot of people, you know, they may not follow it a whole lot. Maybe they only kind of follow the big names. But obviously the biggest story and the biggest name a lot of people follow today currently, obviously is Caitlin Clark, whether it's to see her succeed or fail. Then the other name that gets unfortunately a lot of hate because a lot of people want to see her fail is Mike's girl, Angel Reese, who, again, I know, you know, Porter and I talked about it. Mike and I have talked about it. She doesn't deserve all the hate that she truly gets for that. but Porter, I'll let you kind of start though. Who would you kind of consider as the GOAT of women's basketball from what you've seen out of all the years of watching women's basketball?
You have to go back, and I'll preface this of saying it was very unfair that the WNBA got started after people like, Lisa Leslie in their prime, Reggie Miller's sister, name is just freaking not even coming to my mind right now. But when you go back to who you think is the GOAT, and I'll start on the college level because I know there was a lot of people that automatically was saying Caitlin Clark was the best college player ever. Mm-hmm. And I am going to be a little biased on this, but I've been a UConn fan since '96. I've seen the greatest come out. And it's hard for me to sit there and put somebody as the GOAT who's never won a national championship over somebody like Breanna Stewart who's never lost a national championship. It's hard for me. And everybody wants to say, well, you had this and you had that. How many other teams have won 4, 12? UConn's won more national championships than any collegiate, D1. They surpassed UCLA this year with their 12. But, you could go, Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, all of those. When you look at the GOAT, Breanna Stewart has had a superb WNBA career. But when you're looking at the GOAT, you got to go back to the beginnings and the career of like Diana Taurasi of the GOAT. You can't crown somebody as soon as they come in the GOAT. What do you think happened to LeBron? They come in, he automatically was given these things, and now we're seeing all this when you had Michael Jordan there the whole time. So, and I think that's what irritates me because I've been following this for so long. Casuals are coming along and they think women's college basketball started 5 years ago. Mike, I know you were one of the up-and-comers of trying to get the women's game, but I still want to have the reality check of guys. There was people. Kelsey Plum was before Caitlin Clark. I seen her style. That's what I convey Caitlin Clark's game to is Kelsey Plum. She was doing the same thing at Washington. And the reason why you didn't see it, you didn't have the social media hype. You didn't see that. But she was doing the same thing, logo threes, shooting it 20, 30 times a game. That's what gets me is in her complaining and lack of defense. She doesn't play a lick of defense at all. So it's hard for me to give someone a GOAT when I gauge a GOAT by you look at Michael Jordan. Best on the offensive side of the ball, defense side of the ball, 10 out of your 15 years. You're the GOAT. Yeah. There's not it is not even close.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the interesting thing too when you look at how people measure the GOAT status at that, because you got to think with some athletes, and I'll compare it to football with Tom Brady. He has the 7 rings and he basically has all the statistical to go along with it as far as who he would be, who considers him the GOAT and whatnot. And if you look at it from both an NBA and a WNBA standpoint, and even collegiate, like you said, is it the amount of rings that you won? Were you undefeated as far as getting a national title? Did you even win a national title? For Caitlin, she obviously got the all-time scoring leader for the NCAA, passing, Pete Maravich for that record and whatnot. And he
did it without a 3-point line, though. Give that man a 3-point line, and that record would have been untouchable.
Right. So, it is interesting, and it's not to dismay that she's not good. She didn't do impressive things, but you're right. It is weird how people kind of define their definition and their senses of the word the GOAT and whatnot. Mike, Porter brought up your boy Michael Jordan as far as being the GOAT, and I don't disagree. Yeah. Because again, we've seen LeBron. He had to go create super teams and whatnot to get there and make all these massive trades. For you. Like Porter said, you kind of started following women's basketball kind of coming up and up. So you've seen a lot of the newer generation of people and whatnot. But I know you also do your research too on a lot of these people. And you even talked about Kelsey Plum being, one of the original GOATs for people to watch, people to see. Same with, Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, who I think holds just about every WNBA record there is currently right now. She's a 3-time collegiate champion with UConn. She's also a 3-time WNBA champion with the Phoenix Mercury as well. But Mike, in your opinion, who do you consider the GOAT of women's basketball?
Yeah, I mean, growing up in Chicago, we caught a lot of early games of Elena Delle Donne and obviously Sylvia Fowles and so many greats that came before them. But CP3 is always going to be one of them dogs for me. Getting to work with her, getting to interview her over the years when she was in Chicago with James Wade was a lot of fun. Candace Parker easily is one of the GOATs to me. Obviously, you could look at a Maya Moore too, but the one thing about Maya is she only has that one MVP. Candace has a couple. They're both sitting at, I believe Maya has 6 All-Stars, and then you have Candace who has 7. But I do think, to Porter's point, I'll twist his words just a little bit. I think it's okay if a current player in the league is the GOAT. I think sometimes you can have that in real time. And I think for me, you just have to wait and see how it all folds. And that for me is A'ja Wilson. I think A'ja Wilson, after this season or going into 2026, could be regarded as one of the greatest women basketball players of all time. And when I look at A'ja Wilson, I see Michael Jordan, the way she moves, the way she is able to defend, the way she just backs down everybody in front of her. She's been incredible. She's about to make her 7th All-Star appearance, which ties Candace Parker. She's won, 3 championships already? You're already tying her up with individuals like Maya Moore, Candace Parker, and so many others. She's done it all. Rookie of the year, defensive player of the year. She's won everything at every single level. So when I look at someone who you talk about as the GOAT, Maya Moore definitely is in one of those conversations. Obviously, a prolific scorer. To your point, Porter, like, man, watching Maya Moore in college, watching her college highlights is incredible. And if you haven't done that already, I know it's not in like 4K, 5K television, but like it's good hoops at the end of the day. And Candace has been incredible as well. The only thing is that Vegas championship, it just sucks because she just wasn't able to be healthy for that run. A lot of people don't give it to her, but you're on the roster. You know what I mean? But I think A'ja, when it's all said and done, will be regarded as the GOAT.
When you look and Candace Parker, you bring up, and I've watched that rivalry with Pat and Gino, and coming out of Napersville, my dad was stationed in Kankakee when she was at Napersville. So, there's a little connection there of following her because they're right up the road. You look at how she came into the league with the hype and she delivered. Again, when we're talking about the recency bias and the casual fans who have hopped on the Caitlin Clark train, she is a great player, but they're forgetting the people who become before her. And again, that's what I loved about Jordan the most, is he remembers the people that came before him. He paid homage. And you look at Candace Parker, she reminds me of Kobe because the killer mentality, and she went out there and wanted to kill people. That's her, what she did her whole career. She did it in college. She did it in the WNBA. And my GOAT thing is, who did they fear when they stepped on the court or the boxing ring or the golf course? You got Tiger Woods, Tom Brady, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, Michael Jordan, and people aren't fearing Caitlin. They know she's really good, but they're starting to catch on to she has no mid range. And there was a guy that broke down a great video of, you make her kind of go to the left and you get her out of her rhythm. She can only go one way and create shots, or and I know this is going to catch a lot of flack, she does a lot of pushing off to separate herself to get these open shots. So when you go out there and people go to the basket, Paige Beckers this year, I watched her at Arkansas freshman year come in on a sprained ankle and had that killer mentality, and she tried her best to will herself to a win. Arkansas that year had a girl named Chelsea Dungy who did the same thing and scored 34. It took her scoring her career high to beat that UConn team. But there's a lot of things with Paige is they think just because she's from UConn, you have all these surrounding factors, but you don't have that. UConn went on that big drought. They're not the UConn, and they made that statement. A'ja Wilson, all this stuff going on with Caitlin Clark. She's like, hold on, I'm here. And this year you're averaging 21, 9, and then 2 steals a game. I mean, you're making a statement of I'm still here, but you're producing the points, and then you're walking the walk and talking the talk at the same time.
Yeah. So here's the question I want to point to you guys with talking about that, and I wonder if this maybe plays into the fact of why a lot of the young generation gives Caitlin kind of more of her flowers. And I mean that because if you look at all the players that have come at least the last few years out of LSU, out of South Carolina, out of UConn, I think people realize that those 3 teams they can't really name a whole lot of players singularly off of that besides Paige, because she kind of got a little bit more of the media attention. Same with like LSU with Angel, Haley Van Lith, and whatnot. But people realize that is more of the team as a whole is completely stacked. If you look at that Iowa team and you take Caitlin Clark off of it, how many players can the average fan kind of name after that once Caitlin leaves? And realistically, when you looked at it, much to Porter's point, when you stopped Caitlin out of her rhythm, when you stopped her out of the thing that she couldn't do, which is what South Carolina, what LSU was able to do against her, it was okay. The rest of the team is shut down. Caitlin can't do anything, so this Iowa team kind of flops. So do you think she's considered more of the GOAT and gets more of her flowers because people kind of viewed her as like the one woman machine that really pushed Iowa forward, whereas all of these other girls, like you said, with Paige coming out of UConn, oh, you're supposed to have all these things, when realistically she could have other teammates that she could rely on, that if she's not having the greatest game, she can fall back and, okay, I have 4 other women on this court that can kind of back me up and either play more defensively or be able to get in the paint, get the rebounds and whatnot that I'm not able to get, at least.
I think that's 100% what it is at the end of the day. Like, and I'm not a Caitlin Clark. I'm not going to say I'm not a fan, but like, I'm not watching every single game. I'm not watching the Fever. I wasn't watching the Iowa. Gamecocks, go Gamecocks. Only for women, only for women's basketball. I'm rocking with Dawn only.
That's fair.
I'm always rocking with Dawn till the day I die. But, I think for me, it really comes down to watching who she went up against. You know what I mean? Like, I know we talk about Haley and Angel, but there was also Anissa Morrow, and there were so many other amazing players on that LSU roster, along with Kim being an incredible coach at times, and Flage and so many others. And then when you talk about Dawn Staley and anybody in South Carolina is doing, that's not even just me as a fan, but when you're playing against Iowa and Caitlin Clark's the star, but you really don't have a legitimate center, and you're playing against Aaliyah Boston or Camila Cardoso in the national championship, it's hard, man. I mean, those are some damn near 7-footers. You know what I mean? Like, they're insane. And to your point, man, it's no disrespect to any of the women that played in Iowa, but like, we watched their game translate into the WNBA. I believe, I forget her name, the center ended up going to the LA Sparks, and she really hasn't done anything.
The girl from Stanford, Brink. Yeah.
It's just not Brink. She was on Iowa with Caitlin Clark.
Oh, yeah.
Her name was, I think it was Madison or Maddie.
Heichel, or I think it was Hannah Heichel or Hannah Steichel.
But it's just one of those things for me where it's, those rosters just weren't great. And I've been to Iowa several times covering the Iowa Cubs, and I caught a few games of Caitlin, and it's like, man, it's different, man. It's different when she really takes over. So you got to give her flowers where they're due, because she really is able to just take over a game. That conversation really turns into like an NBA style for me, where it's like, are you Kobe or are you James Harden? Because, there's levels to that, to where it's like, Kobe always said James won't win a ring because of the way he plays. And it's like, I wouldn't say it's because of the way Caitlin plays, but it's the way she's had to play throughout their collegiate career, just because you could pass the ball as much as you want. If your teammates can't hit their shots, they're not going to hit their shots. You know what I mean? So it would have been crazy if you would have got a Caitlin Clark to South Carolina and you would have saw Camilla and Caitlin, or maybe she goes to LSU and you would have saw Angel and Caitlin. Like, I'm loving what we're seeing right now between her and Aaliyah Boston, because Aaliyah Boston is having a career year and she's turning it up. So like, that, the fact that she has that running mate is like really cool and really special, because this year during the playoffs, you'll find out, can you win with this type of play style?
Yeah. And I was getting ready to ask Porter, kind of to Mike's point with that, do you think because of her kind of being that one person act in Iowa as she came to the WNBA, because you notice at first, at least the first half of the year, Mike and I talked about this before, she really struggled that first half until kind of that all-star break. And then when she came back, it was like, okay, she re-looked at how to do this, how to play kind of more of a team ball, team effort. I think they got used to her. She got used to everybody else. And now she is able to have that. Do you think that's also played kind of into a factor too of, now people are kind of seeing, all right, she was bad at first because she wasn't used to it. Obviously, there's a lot of the speculation and whatnot that most of the WNBA kind of hate her because of the popularity and the attention that she is bringing to the WNBA, which I get that they're maybe jealous, but again, eyes is eyes, and it's still viewership is viewership. It's still beneficial. May not be in the most positive way, but it is beneficial. Do you think that's something that plays into the effect because people now see, okay, she's the GOAT because she was good in college. Now she's adapting to the WNBA. She's making it work and she's being successful.
I give you 2 words: underdog and rival. She was the underdog. Mm-hmm. You look at UConn, you look at South Carolina. Why they hated them just like they hated Alabama football. They hated Patriots. They hated back when I'll go back to my era. They hated the Braves and they hated the Cowboys because they were always good. Mm-hmm. So now you have this underdog coming up who's doing it all on her own. But, it's almost like, yes, she does a lot on her own, but yet you're discrediting everything around her. You're making it about her and not, and everybody's like, oh, the Fever, they don't have this team around them. You had the Rookie of the Year the prior year. Yeah. I mean, you look at tonight's game, they don't have her, and you got Mitchell scoring 32, Aaliyah Boston scoring 21, and then a girl out of Arizona, Ari McDonald. I mean, another beast. You have to have, but they don't want to see that. They only want to see her. Mm-hmm. And so the thing is, she's popular, and that's fine. Be popular. And it would almost be like with LeBron James, he was so popular, then automatically saying he's the greatest thing since sliced bread as soon as he comes into the league. That's why I have a problem with it. I hate her fans more than I discredit like her being the GOAT because they want to automatically crown her as the best ever. When I've watched this game, I've watched the WNBA since its inception. I've watched the comments dominate 3 in a row, 4 in a row. I've seen swoops and, all of it. So, but yes, with social media now, everybody can jump on a bandwagon like that. It's so quick, and she is the new hot thing, and that's fine. That's cool. Be popular, raise the awareness of the WNBA, raise the productivity and the viewership. I'm okay with that. Yeah. But hold it when you're saying she is the best to ever do it. She wasn't the best to do it in college. And that when you already set me off like that, saying she was the best thing in college, no, she's not. Right. And it transitioned to the WNBA. Oh, she's the best when you got Asia Wilson, and then you have people, Maya Moore, Candace Parker did the same kind of thing her rookie year, won Rookie of the Year and made the playoffs.
She won MVP her rookie year. I think a lot of people forget about that too.
Yeah. So that's the thing. You're discrediting and you're disrespecting the people that came before you to give her flowers. And that's what drives me away from it.
Here's what I want to ask you though, because I think it's like, and Tony knows I'm not the biggest LeBron fan in the world. I do watch LeBron. Growing up in Chicago, the Derrick Rose days, we hated that man with a passion, like our whole heart. Joakim Noah, ain't nothing good about Cleveland, and to this day there still isn't. But I think when you look at a person like who was on LeBron as soon as he came into the league, and you fast forward 20 years later. I think they had a good, running bet with him too. All-time leading scorer, has a 20-plus year career. So I think it's to me, it's completely okay for individuals to say, I believe this person will be the GOAT. It's different when you start to say they already are the GOAT.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Exactly. And that's like the standard. Like Breonna Stewart, absolute animal. And I want to give Caitlin her flowers because Tony knows I rarely do. A lot of beef with the Sky and the Fever. So like over the last few years, we've had it. But with Breonna Stewart, man, you're looking at a 4-time national champion in college, but only averaged 17 points per game. The difference between Caitlin and Breonna was Caitlin averaging 28 points per game, 8 assists, and just being able to do it, having 7 rebounds a game as well. I mean, like when we talk about the game changing and evolving, like that's a point guard doing that. And to be able to damn near average a triple-double, scoring 28 points per game, Porter, just as well as I do, you could watch a million college basketball games, both on the men's and women's side. Sometimes they don't even crack 100 points. You know what I mean? So you're cracking 30. Sometimes those are 30 balls, 40 balls from Caitlin Clark. Like I will give her flowers. Like I understand the winning wasn't there, and 2 championship losses is it's a telling sign of, okay, it's either they didn't give her enough help or this style of basketball will not win you a championship. And that's where kind of like the James Harden conversation comes in, where it's like, 20 years from now, the stats are going to tell you she's one of the best to ever do it. Look at James Harden. The stats will tell you he's one of the best to ever do it. But when you really put winning in that conversation, it's why he'll never be in the Dwayne Wade conversations or the Kobe Bryant, the Michael Jordan conversations as the best shooting guards in the league, because he just never won anything flat out. You know what I mean? And I think that for me is where, with a lot of Clark fans, man, let them win a championship, man. You'll never hear the end of it. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and you can add another one. You can add Russell Westbrook to that conversation too.
Yeah.
You look at averaging a triple double. You do all this scoring.
Allen Iverson's another guy too.
Allen Iverson, you can throw a lot of people in there, but when you look at this era of basketball, and this is what a lot of people don't realize. We had 2 NBA games where they missed 75 threes in one game.
Yeah.
Okay. The amount of threes that are being shot now, Caitlin's averaging 13, 14 threes a game. That because that is what she is used to. I mean, I think that. No, she is averaging 15 shots a game, 8, 9. So you're shooting 9 to 10 threes a game.
Yeah.
Transitions to a lot of it. You're
shooting. It's the Curry League. Is kind of how we call it.
It's exactly what it is. So yes, oh my gosh, you're leading. But when I go back to the whole points and stuff like that, you go back to Kareem. Who said Kareem was the GOAT when it come to the points? Until now, James he adds to his legacy with the points. Now they're wanting to throw that as a detractor over a metric on why he's the GOAT. You can't just say, well, I'm the best at this. I mean, Pete Maravich, he was one of the all-time leading scorers, but nobody's seen him as the greatest.
Right.
And I don't even, you could put a gun to my head. I don't think I could tell you who the greatest college male basketball player of all time is. It's that hard.
Yeah. I mean, some of the greatest to ever do it didn't even go to college. You know what I mean? Like
that's
LeBron,
true.
Kobe, they didn't go. Mike went for just a few years, and it was like.
But his college career wasn't that good. It was when he was pushed.
Yeah.
He wasn't even the best player on his team.
Mike wasn't even Mike. Mike was an athlete.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Anybody, there's probably 10 people, 15 people you can say, well, they're the best male college basketball player. But you look at Jimmer Fredette, then you look at Adam Morrison, you look at Dan Dickow, you can go all the way back to all these people. JJ Redick, score. Steph Curry did that. That's how he got noticed. But nobody sees them as the greatest. But you see that transition of they were an offensive player, they were electric. That means popularity, but there's a difference between popularity and how great you are when it comes to being a player.
Yeah. And I think too, and y'all can tell me what you think, at least from what I've watched, at least on the men's side here recently, it doesn't seem as though there are that many male stars that are separating themselves from the rest of the pack. Like, to me, really the last 2 probably names I've seen people like separate themselves from the pack that I at least remember off the top of my head is Zion just a few years ago, because you could just tell it was like, okay, yeah, Zion is playing head and shoulders above everybody else. And then kind of with Cooper Flag, but all honesty, like even watching
it was a little push. It was a little push.
Yeah, because even watching, I'm like, I'm not like I don't disagree, but I'm not seeing it as much on the court. Like if you look at you look at Florida when they were running, it's like nobody is like, oh yeah, this dude is leading Florida. It's like no, the whole team of Florida is going there. Same with Auburn and whatnot. So I think that's the other thing, at least with the men's side, within the last 5 or 6 years, there's like no clear cut forward front pack leader of like, man, this guy is it. And I think with women's basketball, with Caitlin and whatnot, I think that's where people shifted that focus of now we have somebody that is head and shoulders, quote unquote, above everybody else because she's got the scoring title, because, again, kind of comparing her to LeBron and whatnot, she's carrying a team to the finals.
Yeah.
She just can't close out with that team because she's one person. And they're shutting her down as well as the rest of the team down. So
we'll bring Michael Jordan back into this. Mike was Mike, and then Phil Jackson, hey, look, we're going to run the triangle offense. We're going to have you tone it down a little bit when we win as a team. But he still led the league in scoring 10 times.
Yeah.
But even he had to scale it back. But he was willing to do what it took to win a national championship.
Oh, yeah.
And you've even seen instances where Caitlin Clark's been there. Somebody else gets a shot and she's just flailing. She feels like she has to do it all on her own.
Mm-hmm.
But, I was going to bring up another point. I mentioned the underdog thing, but you're talking about the rival. And you mentioned the Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark stuff. You need that in that. She is the underdog. She was the underdog. Now everybody's on her side. Mm-hmm. And Angel Reese is now the sacrificial lamb of being that rival. And and not every game transitions from college to pro. She is a great rebounder, great player. But look who she's stacked against, Asia Wilson, in the same, you're the same position. But look at Haley Van Lith. Look at all these people that you see their highlights. We can cut up this podcast in 20 different sections, and they're going to look at it. Damn, that was a good podcast. And then they watch the long form version, like, well, it was kind of mid.
Yeah.
So you watched Haley Van Lith and these highlight Paige Beckers when she was playing at Hopkins, and used Cooper Flagg, Chet Holmgren, all these guys. You're seeing their clips. You're seeing highlight films.
Yeah.
There's where the popularity comes. And then guess what? When that fades, I'll give you another. Mac McClung. Dude was a baller in high school. He went to Georgetown, was averaging 27. And guess what? He wanted another round of those commitment videos. Then he goes to Texas Tech. Dude's a G League player, and they're bringing him into the slam dunk competition to get that. He's getting the clicks. He's getting the views.
Hey, shout out Mac McClung. I did not expect that in this podcast today. Shout out Mac.
But it's the social media era. That commitment video. They want to jump from team to team, and you're talking about nobody in college separating themselves because they're not staying with the program long enough to develop.
That's true.
To have that.
And that's what I was getting ready to. And you kind of leaned into it, so that was great transition, by the way. Because that's what I was going to kind of ask when you mentioned rivalry and whatnot. And I think this is also, like you said, with Caitlin being the underdog. This is where I get confused, because I understand the rivalries. If you look at anything from college, professional, you have those rivalries. Mike's a Bears fan, so the Bears, the Packers, that's probably one of those heated rivalries of all time in professional football and whatnot. You can even make the same argument for the Cowboys and Washington. College, you can say the same thing between LSU and Alabama, and Ohio State, Michigan. Michigan State. All of these huge rivalries.
Yeah,
and it's weird with women's basketball, and I know, Porter, we talked about this. I know Mike and I have talked about this. I still kind of compare it to like the WWE of like this whole face and heel thing. They portray Caitlin, like you said, this face underdog that is going above everything that she's supposed to. She's beating these teams she's not supposed to, and then she goes up against this big monster juggernaut that is LSU, that is UConn, that is South Carolina, the big bad bullies and whatnot. But it seems as if the only person that they focused on, and much to your point, Porter, I think mainly it's just because of social media, and I don't know what it was that set the internet ablaze about Angel Reese, but
it's the gesture. That's what started it.
Yeah,
and it's funny because if you kind of look over the last 6 years with the titles that LSU has won across the different sports, Joe Burrow did it. Nobody hates Joe Burrow that way. The LSU baseball teams have done it. Nobody hates LSU baseball players, or at least that I know of.
In those baseball games, the gestures in college baseball games are insane. Christian Moore, oh my God, Christian
Moore.
Down
to the SEC, you'll see some. You come down to SEC baseball,
you'll see some shit watching college baseball. It's crazy.
Yeah. But
we're getting 12,000 at the college baseball stadiums here in the SEC. It's nuts.
But it's crazy because I feel like that rivalry between Caitlin and Angel has transferred over. And I don't know if it's because, again, like you said, the hand gesture, the fact that Angel did win a title. And I think this is the other thing that people hate. And again, it's just haters being haters. That run that Angel did for that national title with LSU, that was probably some of her best work for her career. I mean,
she's 23 and 10.
Yeah, 23 points a game. I mean, what is it? Almost 15 and a half. Rebounds per game. So I mean, she was doing great. And I don't know why in particular with men's basketball and especially Angel, everybody is like hyper focused on we have to just hate this poor girl no matter what she does. Yeah. Like you said, she's probably one of the greatest rebounders, at least, in the WNBA history and whatnot. And she's only in her second year doing that. And people, of course, are like, well, she can't make the shot. We're not saying that she doesn't have stuff to work on.
Right.
But much to your point, they're not saying, well, Caitlin has to work on playing defense. Caitlin has to, adjust her game. So, where do you think like the just hate for this comes from?
I think
Because that's really my big question.
For me, it was especially just like working in media last year and over the last 5 years in the W. Is what I experienced last year was nothing close to anything I had ever seen before in the WNBA. It went from 3 or 4 guys calling me lame for covering the WNBA to 100,000 people just bullying one individual. Like I want to make it a point that Camila Cardoso also beat Caitlin Clark in the national championship and is also on the Chicago Sky. So I don't want to hear it being about a rivalry or it being because it's Chicago versus Indiana or Caitlin versus Camila, because they don't treat Camila the same way they treat Angel whatsoever.
No.
And Camila also has struggled not in similar ways to Caitlin, or not Caitlin, Angel, but in her own ways as well. She hasn't translated to what she once was in South Carolina with Dawn.
She wasn't really that dominant at South Carolina. She was not like an Asia Wilson at South Carolina. Like, again, covering the SEC, she is very good. But when you're talking about dominating, she's more laid back. She's more quiet. Now she'll get in your face if she has to.
Right. We've seen she's valid for sure. Like she'll go to war for any of her teammates, and she was the kindest person I ever met, but like piss her off and like watch the fire explode. So I loved seeing her be able to get after it. But to that point of like Caitlin versus Angel and why it's not Caitlin versus Paige, which is probably what the conversation should be since they're even similar positions. You have that conversation about Angel, and I talked to Tony about this a multitude of times. The majority of it's going to be racism. And that's just what it comes down to at the end of the day. And people can feel how they want to feel about that. But as a white man, I feel like I can openly say there's a lot of shitty other white men in this world. And that's just what it is. Racism comes in all colors, all sizes, all shapes, and whatever. But, I feel like that was their excuse. Exactly what you and Porter said about like the hand gesture. It was their excuse to attack her because, oh, look, she's a bully, or we're doing this because that. Nothing anybody has said about her is valid. There's no validation for the comments that she's been going through and the things she's been going through. That weirdo that was trying to get on the team bus last year, I think that was in Washington. I forget where it was, but like to get after her and Kennedy Carter, like that was fucking weird. Like there's no excuse for it. But I just think like the only reason it's focused towards Angel and not Camila or anybody else is specifically because of that moment. I know Joy Taylor talked about that the other day, that like there wouldn't be one without the other without that moment. Like people forget Caitlin did that shit first. And whether you want to say it was towards her teammate or towards someone else, I don't care. Angel saw it and she remembered it and she kept the receipt. Who
Caitlin Clark reminds me of, and you brought the WWE into it. And I've watched wrestling for a very long time. When you had the tag team match and the ref was blinded and you had the guy on the turnbuckle sitting there hitting the guy, and then the ref comes to and they throw their arms up. To me, that's Caitlin Clark. She'll do the subtle things and then throw her hands up like she did nothing wrong, or a scapegoat of, that's the thing. She has the benefit of the doubt. This is another aspect of there's attitude with this rivalry. It is absolutely 110% a Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese deal, because you have the flamboyance, the attitude of Caitlin Clark, and then you have on the other side, they're the same. They have the same personality. Two alphas trying to, and yes, Caitlin did do it first, and then you see the whole thing with the bump and that turned into the fight. Caitlin sit there, push off, and then all of a sudden, whether it was an inadvertent, poke or whatever, and then the girl comes in and bumps her. Okay, that was wrong, but whatever. Sophie, she didn't go after the girl that bumped her. She didn't want to go up against the person that she didn't want.
Porter, let me tell you something right now, man. Let me tell you something because Tony's gone. When I worked there, shout out to my dog because her and I still talk all the time. Kalia Copper and I used to talk so much shit about Sophie Cunningham because Ka and Sophie got into it in the WNBA finals just a few years before when she was still in Phoenix. Like Sophie Cunningham is a pest. She gets after it, man. I love Sophie for those reasons. If she's on your team, you'll love her. If she's not, you won't. But like the idea of her being an enforcer is insane to me. It's not what it is whatsoever. She's not a Patrick Beverly. She's not a Draymond. Like she's a pest. But like
it's for the moment, because you see her jersey sales sold out right after that moment. But look, now you're averaging 5-4. No, so now we're gonna bring Sophie into like the Angel Reese conversation.
Yeah.
It's okay. We're going to have all this hype with Sophie. We're going to get on her side and jump on her bandwagon. And, she was this Taekwondo, and now we all want to be Sophie Cunningham fans.
Yeah.
She's averaging 5'4" and 0.9 in one steal.
And
so it's a double standard of look at this. She scored 5 points tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to that point, like last year watching, and again, it was a very different situation because of how it ended and why she's playing in Mexico currently and why she hasn't gotten another opportunity because she's had these problems everywhere. Kennedy Carter was averaging over 20 points per game last year. She was an absolute beast on the court. And what a lot of people don't talk about when that Indiana Fever game took place, nobody saw Caitlin Clark throw an elbow towards Kennedy Carter's head prior to her hitting her. And Kennedy, if you know Kennedy, you know Kennedy. And that's how Kennedy's not going to take that shit. Like Kennedy is going to stand on it. And that's a big part of why she hasn't worked out in other places because sometimes that happens in house. And
she's like who was the dude that Latrell Sprewell type, a lot of talent, but you're getting your own way. When she played for Texas A&M, a reporter mispronounced her name and you could just see the fire. You could see, a short fuse.
She's on defense all the time.
You cannot deny her talent. I've watched her. Again, in the SEC, I've watched all these players for the past 5 years covering Arkansas. And, yeah, she was one of those.
Right.
Then you go Austin out of Ole Miss and then the girl, Ryan Howard from Kentucky. Then you have the girl from Tennessee. You see all these talents, but they get to the WNBA and it's like they're used to being stars. Now you got to be a team.
But you go to that point, though, to where it's like Sophie Cunningham, it defends Caitlin Clark, and she's a hero, and she's top in jersey sales. Kennedy Carter does that for Angel Reese, and everybody on social media is calling her a thug or calling her the worst things in the world and saying she doesn't deserve to be in the league, and she should be – I heard some people say she should be arrested for that hit on Caitlin Clark. And I'm like, it's a fucking basketball game, brother. Like, I've played basketball in Chicago my whole life. I'm taking at least 2 or 3 elbows on the court every single Sunday. Like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
None of these people played a last point in 21, so I don't want to hear nothing about it.
No, come on, man. Like,
and plus, to be fair, too, to kind of compare it to like football. How many times have you ever met the person that like he just talked like for example, actually perfect player to compare it to. Look at Phillip Rivers. How much did Phillip Rivers used to talk trash on the field all the time to guys? And all the time they're like, Phillip Rivers is the absolute worst trash talker. And there's so many defensive guys like, I just want to hit Phil. I just want to hit Phil in his mouth. I want to hit him as hard as I can.
Yeah.
And I think what it is because of the fact that it is Caitlin. And like you said, the fans, the media, and everything has propped her up to kind of be the golden child. You can't touch the golden child. She can talk, she can talk all the smack, all the trash that she wants. Yeah. Nobody can say anything. But if somebody else does, no, it's not cool. It's not professional. That just blows my mind. But I will say I wanted to throw in real quick about the whole Sophie Cunningham thing after that. And I sent the picture to Mike, and I don't know if you saw it, Porter. There's like a picture. I don't want to say it's like a boudoir photo, but she's in kind of like a swimsuit and whatnot. Like she looks good for what it is. And the Indiana Fever captured it. This is our defender. And one of the top comments was, imagine them doing this with Draymond. And then it's just like this AI generated picture of Draymond with like a massive dumpy. And I'm just like,
it's true. Yeah. She's Draymond Green. Yeah. Because Draymond, he jumps on that bandwagon with the team that he was with, and he acts like, yes, he played defense. He did all this stuff, but he was very, like Dennis Rodman was very humble about he went off the rails. But when it was time to clock in, it was time to clock in. He's one of those, he has to say that he's great. He has to say that because he wants to feel like he was just as important as Steph, Clay, and that's his whole thing. So that you get that is now they have something to jump on and cheer for because it is. And that's the social media world we live in. Anything that they can say that – and look, I'll say this. I was, when we talk about Caitlin Clark and giving her flowers, she needed somebody to step up. I was tired of seeing her you look at what Michael Jordan went through with the bad boy Pistons and all them. You needed somebody like Horace Grant, Charles Oakley to come in and get there to play for him and have his back. And she did because she was getting thrown around, whether it was her fault or not, or what. It's still you are putting.
Oh, for
She
sure.
is getting hammered. You
I
know.
watch a lot of Caitlin Clark games, and what I always find super interesting is, especially when you look at the comment sections. I'm a Caitlin Clark fan before I say anything. I watch Caitlin Clark. I've been watching her for 5-6 years now, but Caitlin talks a lot of shit during the game, and if we could get Caitlin mic'd up for a single season, you would understand why she gets hit the way she does. I'm not saying it's deserving to get thrown on the ground, but there's welcome to the league moments, and then there's just this motherfucker pisses me off. And she pisses people off, not only because she's talking shit, but just like Larry Bird and Michael Jordan and so many greats before, like you're watching. Diana Taurasi was a huge shit talker. You know what I mean? And I think, like, for me, it's not only are you talking shit, but you're scoring in my face too, and people are tired of it. And I think that's why she, everybody thinks it's because they hate her, or they you're not the sacred and the leader of the league, like you're not going to save the league. Like, it's not about that. It's just about Caitlin talks a lot of shit, and I think people get tired of it. Now, last year when I heard the body of Angel Reese hit the floor after Alyssa Thomas just body slammed her, or you saw, Caitlin Clark get hit by Kennedy Carter, like those are different circumstances where it's like, that's just egregious. There's no place for that in the game of basketball. But it's like, at the end of the day, man, if you watch Caitlin Clark, like it makes a lot of sense. Larry Bird used to shoot a 3 in your face and be like, fuck you, and go back to the other side.
But dude, Larry, listening to like some of the guys talk about Larry Bird's trash talk, it was just hilarious. Like
diabolical.
He's like, why you got the white guy guard me? What? Larry, what? Like, no, why you got the white guy guard me? No, get him out of here.
Sleep, because it's going to be a long day. And that's what I want the NBA to get back to.
Right.
That's what I want. I want them to hate each other. That's what gets me about this whole. I just see now, for those who cover the NBA, the Oklahoma City Three's back together in Houston now. You have Russ and KD now back in Houston, but yes, it's that buddy system. It's like, no, I want them to hate each other. It's like I don't want them to like each other.
You said Russ went back to Houston again?
Yep, just now, breaking news. Yes,
wow.
Harden, Russ, and Kevin Durant are playing for Houston now.
Wait, so Harden went back too?
Yeah, let me look at this. Make sure it ain't fake news, so we can clip this out. But
it may. I think Harden's still over there in LA.
LA, with the Clippers.
But I mean, Russ is a free agent, so Russ could do whatever he wants.
Yeah. But I do think, too, much to y'all's point, because I kind of forgot to say it as I was last talking. I think what the other thing that really makes a lot of the WNBA players mad with Caitlin is not just the hype up of, you're not going to come in and save the league, like, being handed the GOAT title and whatnot. I think it is also the outside noise of the fans too, because you got to think of, like you said, like we talked about pretty much the whole episode, giving other women their flowers and giving them their credit of what they've built and what they've got the league to right now, and the accolades that they've accomplished and received. And you've got this girl that comes in, not saying that she isn't good, but, she comes in, she's put on a pedestal. Then you've got all the outside fans talking about how great she is and how much. And it's like, to me, that's probably an extra little bit of motivation. Not only are you talking smack on the court about how great you are, but now I got to listen to, thousands of people chirp the same damn thing when they don't even know who you are. And I got to listen to it. So that, to me, that's just extra motivation for you to just get hit in the mouth. Like that. That's just extra motivation for it to happen, in all honesty.
For sure.
Yeah, you got to earn your flowers. I'm not saying that she couldn't become the greatest ever.
Yeah, I think she could.
Pay your dues.
Yes.
Even when, Mike, he come out of the Olympics and they were like, he is the greatest ever. He never treated it like he was. And he 2 3-peats in a row, he went away from 2. But there's nothing, again, that's one hill. Me and my co-host last night were saying that's one. You cannot ever tell me that he is not the greatest. And 80% of it has nothing to do with his accomplishments on the court or points. It was his mentality. He wanted to break the other. It was like Arnold Schwarzenegger when it come to how he went in bodybuilding. He wanted to get into other people's minds and break them down mentally and then kill them on the court. And that's what he did. I mean, this was so crazy. He had to make up lies in his head to motivate him to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I think you could probably even make the same argument for Kobe. And I think, and it kind of sucks that it took Kobe passing away for them. I think for people to realize how truly great Kobe was, and I think that's why he moved up on so many people's,
Sure.
all-time top 10 list. Because I think for a lot of people, they always considered him in the top 10. But he maybe wasn't ever top 5, and then unfortunately after he passed, they moved him up to top 5.
Tony, there's only one guy, and me and you worked at ASAP together. There's only one guy that stayed the same.
He did the whole time.
Pride has hated Kobe Bryant his entire life, and he will continue to.
But he's a Celtics
now
fan,
that
so
they're
that makes sense.
discrediting him. Who was it recently was discrediting? It was Gilbert Arenas. Like, I mean, some things he says you can say he's spot on, but people think just because if he has one good take, his other 10 are good when they're all trash. I mean, they have you got these hot takes, and he's sitting there calling Kobe a sidekick. That's very, very, very disrespectful because you're taking away the work ethic. You heard the Gordon Hayward, I think it was the one that went out to ball, and he was wanting to work underneath Kobe, and he was like, come to the gym, and he showed up an hour. It's one of those work ethic type deals.
Right.
It's very discreditable. Now everybody wants to break down people to think that they're raising the case of someone else. I mean, the point is so low as saying Michael Jordan was lying about his 48-inch vertical. Okay, so if that was it was a stat, it was a freaking NBA combine type metric that you're throwing in there. So you're now going to use that to say he's not the greatest ever. That's the lows that these people are going in this campaign that LeBron's going on about rings don't matter when you spent your whole career chasing rings. Now you want to say it don't matter. Again, now I got Kobe over LeBron because of that. Yeah. Because generally you want to say that you're the best. Now I put you at 3. Kobe's ahead of you now.
Yeah. Well, not only that too, but it's hard for him to, and I think he mainly says it, and I could be completely and totally wrong. So if y'all feel that way, please tell me. I think he honestly feels it because he's at the age he realizes, he's coming to the end of all of this, and the likelihood of getting another ring, that window is very, very, very small of being able to do that. And even if he does, he's going to finish with 5. Like you said, Michael Jordan has 6. If he really wants to get technical, and I know, we talked about at the beginning of the show who people kind of consider the GOAT of each and different sports, is it the matter, is it the number of rings that you have? Is it the number of statistics that you make? Because if you want to go by number of rings, purely that, Bill Russell, who just passed away, had 11.
Yeah, 11.
And ain't nobody touching that. Like, realistically,
I want to ask y'all this, and this is a thought that we've all followed sports. And it does have to do with rings, but the word dynasty comes to my mind. What other greatest of all time has ever not been a part of a dynasty? Yeah. What dynasty has LeBron been a part of? Can you call the 2-year championship that he did at Miami? Do you call that a dynasty?
What are they? They went to 4 finals or 3 finals?
I think 3 for sure.
I know they lost to
the Mavericks.
So you lost to Dallas, then you lost to San Antonio.
Yeah. But like to that point too, though, like I for me, this is where I come from as someone who grew up with LeBron James. I was like 3 years old when LeBron came in the league, so I really don't know a world without him. I'm still getting used to a world without Tom Brady. And Tony and I said that last week, or earlier this week, where it was like Rodgers is gone, and I'm looking at all these 25-year-old to 30-year-old quarterbacks, and I'm just like, it's not the same. Yeah, I'm like looking around like, any of y'all looking good? Any of y'all got a 20-year career coming? Like, it's rare. It doesn't happen a lot. And there are players like a Tim Duncan who is a part of a dynasty, 15-time All-Star, 5-time NBA champion. You're looking at a 15-time all-defensive team. Like, this is an absolute phenom, and no one talks about him being in the top 5 just because his game was a little different. For LeBron, I think what you're seeing from LeBron as a kid become a man. And that's where I'm at with it, because when he came into the league, there was a lot of cockiness. There was a lot of, I have a certain kind of group of people around me all the time, the entourage, everything that came with it. When he used to be at the WWE games with the flip phones, and it was like a huge thing. Like, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I knew what it was to have a flip phone. My first phone was a BlackBerry, but I'm not too young. But I think for me, Porter, you might call it the biggest load of shit you're ever going to hear today, but I think you're watching LeBron realize, like, damn, the game is closing on me. And instead of ring chasing, I think you're just enjoying the moment. You know, you're playing alongside your son, whether people agree with that or not. You're playing alongside your son.
Yeah, I get it.
Crazy.
I get that part because we've seen that with the Wizard years and Jordan.
But do you think he genuinely means that when he says, because that's where I'm at, is like, okay, I think he's kind of like Thanos after the snap. He's kind of like, man, I'm just chilling. You know, I'm just here now. Or do you think it's really in the back of his mind, like, I didn't get enough rings as I should have?
I think it's that.
Well, I think that has something else to do with being a competitor. I don't think that has anything to do with the GOAT conversation, because everybody wishes they would have had more. I mean, you look at Jordan. What if he would have never retired? Or I think they could have just got one. Look, what do you think Stockton and Reggie Miller and Karl Malone and, you know, all AI, all these people, they wish they had a one ring.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think a lot of that. But what it is anybody else in the world that has ever played NBA could have said what he said on that podcast with Steve Nash. But for every ruler, there's an exception, and he's that exception because he made his career out of that. Now, but then you're going along with, well, I want a month off between the playoffs, and rings don't matter, and you know, these things that he is saying contradicts himself in these I've never seen somebody lose credibility as much when it comes to their legacy off the court than what he is doing.
Yeah.
And it's not a hater thing. It's legit. Yes. But I think he's starting to realize that he don't know how to handle it. And I don't know if he believes or not, but it's what he's saying is what, like, whoa, you know, of all people, you can't say these things because this is how you wanted your legacy to be.
Right.
You called up Dwayne Wade when you realized you couldn't beat the Celtics or whatnot and go to Miami. Yeah. So that's the way I see it.
That's just where my thing is, though. Like, I've told Tony this, and it's a head scratcher. And I'm from Chicago, man. I'm a diehard Bulls fan, but MJ lied to y'all face, and he didn't lie to mine. I wasn't even born yet, but he lied to everybody in Chicago's face. I will never play for another coach other than Phil Jackson. Yeah. And here you are in a Washington Wizards uniform. So, like, everybody's full of shit at the end of the day. I think everybody kind of just does their own thing, man. And, like, not to make an escape for, you know, LeBron, but, like, it's just definitely one of those things where I think your mentality just changes as you get older. You know what I mean? Like Kobe talked about, like, damn, like he started loving being a girl dad so much. He's like, I kind of focused way too hard on the rings for a period of time. And, you know, his relationship with Vanessa and how there was some complications there for quite some time. And you watch that mentality change. So I'm not making any excuses for Bron. I'm not a Bron fan, but it's
bring up a great point, because you can go ask any CEO of any company. You can go ask any of these millionaires, billionaires that you see on the street that have sacrificed their family life to make their work life and their career so successful. And I guarantee you that they would take some of it back to have more time with the family or not focus on these things. Because in the end, you have so much money that you're never going to spend, or so much success, it only gets you so far. But yeah, when you see your kid in the NBA and you want to play with him, of course, being a dad, how many of, you know, my life changed when I become a father. You know, my life changed again when I become a stepfather. You know, your life changes. So, you know, I'm not a total asshole when it comes to LeBron James. It's just there's things that say you're like, you wish
it's a little flip floppy. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So here's my question on it. And again, it's not to discredit him or give him a way out.
Sure.
Do you think it's almost kind of to that point, because he's coming to the end, because you've been one of the best competitors the game has ever seen for, 23 years of your entire career. This has been your entire life. This has been your entire focus. You're coming now to the end. And whether it's regrets, whether it's, is it kind of like a midlife crisis of, this is something I've lived for. This has been the biggest part of my life for the last 23 years, and it's coming to an end. And I'm not saying he doesn't know what to do next, because obviously we've seen him dabble as far as like the Hollywood films with Space Jam. He's talked about he wants to potentially own an NBA franchise in the future and whatnot, and do a lot of business decisions. He's built up his brand, he's built up his name. So he is following in like Kobe's footsteps of he is preparing for the after. But do you think for him, having been that elite guy, been that competitor for so long, now it's hard for him to get out of that mentality of, now I do fully have to move on and do something else. And to him, the rings don't matter as a result of that, because it's kind of over type thing.
I think it's more so like kind of like I said earlier, not to like just continue to just be a record player, but like I think it's processing it and really kind of realizing like, okay, like the best is behind you. Like granted, it's still averaging 24 points per game at 40 years old, which is insane. But like, okay, like 21-time All-Star. You're looking at a guy who finished second in Defensive Player of the Year once. Never got that one, but many people feel different ways about that. Whatever, you know what I mean? But you're a 4-time MVP. You're not going to get a 5th. You maybe sneak one more championship in there. We'll see what happens with the Luka era. We'll see how that pans out. But I think it's really just like you're laid back. You're chilling, man. Like I think for LeBron, it's I've paid my dues. And I think, Porter, even if you're not a huge fan of him, and I'm not a huge fan of him, I think we can all sit here and agree that the torch was handed to him after the Kobe and Jordan era, and he held it well. You know what I mean? He held it well. And I think now it's kind of that time where you and I are still having this conversation right now because nobody else has grabbed it from him. And that's where we talked about earlier about the college guys. Like, okay, so who wants it? You know what I mean? Because everybody gets a ring nowadays. And that's the conversation about LeBron is like, look, in the Jordan era, it was just Jordan. And Jordan had to go fucking play baseball for Hakeem to go get 1 or 2. Like, and if he didn't, he probably would have won 8 straight. Kobe was dogging him outside of that Pistons series. But, it's just one of those things where it's like, in this era, we're watching Tatum get a ring, Giannis get a ring, Luka get to the finals. We're seeing all these different SGA just got a ring. We're seeing all these different faces of the league become the face of the league for a year. You got the Trae Youngs, the John Morants, who are all, Zion was supposed to be Zion. I still remember being in the hospital on morphine when I was sick, and I saw Zion's shoe explode on TV, and I was like, am I just super high right now, or did that just happen? Like, I don't forget how much we praised Zion. And there's so many, and now Cooper Flagg's in that conversation. I know it's a little long-winded, but it's like Bron's just chilling until someone grabs that shit from him. And Curry is in that same conversation. I feel like they both kind of just like split it to where it's like Bron has the torch. Curry was the face and a popularity conversation.
Curry was the face.
So who's taking it? You know what I mean? Yeah. Who's taking those roles? And if you had to tell me today, not to switch your question, Tony, like, I think that's where Bron's like, hey, man, it's mine till one of y'all take it. So who's taking it? And I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, you can't because of that valid point. But Jordan took it. He didn't have it handed to him. I mean, he went and earned it, that Olympic, when he went up against – but the thing that's way, way back, people don't realize even before Jordan went to the league, he took college guys and went 8-0 against the NBA All-Stars.
Yeah.
I mean, and because he wanted to make a point that I'm the best. I want to be the best. But you are right when you're talking about he could be chilling because nobody's really taking it, but yet you've had so many other people try. Curry had his chance and then he lost it. And none of it has to do with the Kevin Durant going to Golden State thing. Even after that, you still could have done something, win another championship. When's the last time they won a championship? So you can't even – I don't even put him in that kind of conversation because he's never been a leader. He's never willed a team to win a championship. He's used his team. That's what you call a true team championship. Yeah. He's never willed them to. I would say that first one and the last one, at least for Curry. The last one when Andrew Wiggins was your number 2 and Jordan Poole was your number 3, that boy earned that motherfucker. I'll tell you right. Yeah, and
you had to bring Iggy back too because that's how
Klay
he
Thompson.
Got his last one.
Klay Thompson was hobbling around fresh off an Achilles ACL tear, both torn, and like the first championship too before KD. Like, let's be. I'm gonna be completely honest for me because Porter, I love you and I love everything you've said so far. I want to do more shows with you. Yeah, but I will not hear anything about that first Golden State team. That first team with him, Draymond, who was still at the time Defensive Player of the Year, and Klay, who looked like the second coming of Kobe Bryant at times. I mean, like you saw that was your two-way guy that allowed Curry to be Curry. I love that squad. And KD, I understand one might say they needed KD more than KD needed them. I don't care. But for me, it's like that Golden State dynasty, even without Kevin Durant, like they made their name for themselves, man.
They did. I'm saying he made that moment with that first championship, and he could have went so much further with it. That was the point I was trying to make.
But if Magic decided to go with Jordan, he would have took. You tell me right now if Magic Johnson in '93 didn't have the situation happen with him, and he was like, "Yo, Jordan, I want to team up with the Bulls." You don't think Jordan would take Magic?
I don't know. I really don't know, because to get inside the head of Michael Jordan, I don't think so. I don't, because he wanted to be the guy. And anytime, and the reason why I say that is anytime someone else come up and they said they were the greatest, put me on Danny or who was Dan Marley, put me against Clyde Drexler. You know, he made a point that, oh, you're saying he's the next me, or you're saying he's on my level. I'm going to show you why he's not. So I don't think he would have. And this is just pure basketball trying to get inside of his head. I don't think he would have, because, you know, he was, and it's everybody's saying, well, Jordan never beat a 73-9 team to win a championship. He was that.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at
they won 72
championships. You look at the point differential between the number 1 and 2 guy. All of his 6 championships are in the top 10 of that list.
Yeah,
all of them.
Yeah, I think if we go inside the mind, it's just a lot of slot machines.
Exactly.
Probably. Yeah. I mean, you got to give him credit. He's been such a successful businessman post. Again, and I think that's the other thing, and we might also kind of end it with this. We'll see. As far as the GOAT conversation, especially on the NBA side, not just on the court, but what does the GOAT look like off the court? You know, look at the empire and the brand that Jordan has built for himself. You know, his brand is on college football teams. You know, his brand is on the NBA team. You know, he owned the Hornets at one point. You know, you look at Kobe. Kobe's the same way. You know, he built his brand. He built his empire. LeBron James is doing the same thing. You know, do you think that also kind of incorporates with it as far as who is the GOAT, because of not just what they've done on the court and, you know, cementing their legacy, but now off the court, and we're still talking about them. And, you know, Jordan hasn't played for, you know, over 20, 30 years now at this point, and we're still talking about him. And I know Kobe and LeBron are obviously more recent. You know, Kobe, you know, before he passed, had just retired and whatnot. LeBron will more than likely, barring anything tragic, hopefully not, will still be around for a good hot minute. We'll still probably be talking about LeBron for years to come.
I'll say this real quick, and a lot of it has to do with them bringing Jordan back for the commentary. And I'll tie this into the WWE again. The popularity and the viewership's down, so they're bringing Jordan back. Mm-hmm. Look at the WWE of, you know, you were talking about LeBron and trying to take these championships. Well, who's the top dog in the WWE right now? They're having to bring John Cena back. They're having to bring Gold. They're having to bring all these older cats because it's not there. You had Roman Reigns and his little allegiance there for a little bit, but it never took on. So you're having to bring your nostalgia back to bring it. And so therefore, yes, LeBron's waiting for the next guy, but yet he's taking the NBA down with him because there's no popularity anymore with it. And now you're bringing Jordan back to do commentary, and you're like, oh, my God, it's like watching College Football 25 come back out again. The hype now is like, oh, my gosh, we hadn't seen this in so long. Mm-hmm. That's another reason why he is the GOAT, because it's like, you know, you have all these stars in the NBA. Now we're going to bring the guy back.
Yeah.
And we're going to see what happens.
That's where I was kind of with it, too, is like, you know, and again, like to Bron's point, like Bron's 40 something, you know what I mean? So like the league still asking him or expecting him to average 20 points per game, I think is taken out for granted a lot. And same with Curry. You know, you start to saw Curry in this past year, and maybe a little bit towards the end of 2023. It's like, you know, the shots aren't falling as consistently as they once were. And like Curry's in his mid-30s now too. KD, you know, Russ and Derrick Rose just retired this past year, and that broke my heart. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of guys who really held the torch at different times who are starting to say goodbye. And the reason you bring Jordan back is, you know, say LeBron retires tomorrow, Porter. Like what are we talking about? And Tatum's out, Halliburton's out, all these guys are out. So what's the 2026 season really look like once LeBron, Curry, and KD aren't playing anymore? And like, that's really the question. So, you know, I think for me, Tony, a great question that'll never be answered is Kobe on and off the court, because you saw him start to become a vocal speaker. You saw him right dear basketball, I truly believe I would be seeing him at WNBA games as a head coach or a part of the coaching staff with Gianna at some point, had that tragically not happened, because that's kind of where it was leaning. You saw him a lot more in the WNBA space. He always kind of was involved.
You'd
But
have bought a
a lot
team.
more. Yeah.
He'd been big, because Gianna
I
wanted a
believe
big UConn fan, and she would have been in the league.
Yeah.
Yes, he would have been. That gives me chills, because, man, that's one of those that gone too soon.
Yeah. You never know what would have happened with that. Or even like I met Dwayne Wade before, at a Chicago Sky game, because he decided, I'm not going to own the team, but I want a stake in the team. It could have been that simple. You know what I mean? And like LeBron, I'll give him his flowers, on and off the court, already made $1 billion in his career. The movies, he's building some balls for kids in Cleveland. Like, that's incredible too. Jordan, on the court, it's there. Off the court, not so much. And I think that's just Jordan as a person, though. You know what I mean? I think Jordan didn't fuck with all of the cameras in his face and everybody just following his day-to-day life. Like, it's a different world back then, where everybody was just kind of stalking you or being like weird. You know what I mean? Like, it's interesting. We had somebody in Chicago. You ever see the 23 Gates? And it's his old mansion that he's no longer in. Somebody snuck in there and like broke in and was playing basketball on the basketball court just a few years ago. And it's like, he hasn't been there in years, but like somebody still wanted to do it, and like, it's crazy when you talk about on and off the court.
Yeah.
There's a lot of levels to it. Russell Westbrook might be doing a lot for OKC in the next upcoming years, and how they're going to go about everything. So it's going to be cool to see what he's doing off the court, and then from a fashion standpoint. So that's long-winded for me, but like off the court's hard, man, because like a lot of these guys, some are shitty people and others are like great people, but aren't.
But a lot of them have their own foundations. You like here in Arkansas, Isaiah Joe and Jaylee Williams played on the same high school team, played at Arkansas. Cool. Now they're on, they do a lot in the local community. And I think you see that with the basketball players is they'll do stuff for their town, but now we're seeing you could be at OKC and then next year you're here, your next contract. They always give back to their communities. They always, and there's a lot of grind that goes into an NBA player, really remembering where they came from. So you'll see a lot of it on the local level of their foundations and stuff. So it doesn't get publicized as much because it's on a local level where they're from.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I mean, it's the same, I will say, being even here in Indianapolis, Peyton Manning was the exact same way as far as, giving so much. I mean, heck, Riley's Children's Hospital is named after him, as far as, they have a whole Peyton Manning wing, just dedicated to him because, he poured and funneled so much money into it. But no, I mean, I kind of felt like it was one of those questions as far as, people talk about the GOAT. And again, that's what I wanted to point out is all of these different criteria that people come up with, again, rings, statistics, accolades, what did you do? What have you not done? I felt like kind of off the court, may or may not also play a factor to that. And much to Mike's point real quick, who kind of takes the torch next? Because, all these big brands are kind of leaving. And I even saw a thing, and I could be wrong statistically, it was like the same 8 teams won the championship for like 30 years. And then here in the last few years, you've had nothing but a parity of different teams be winning it. So, what does that do for the NBA? Because again, you don't have those singular like stars really anymore, kind of carrying it.
You're going to see more of that because the NIL transfer portal. You look at the AAU circuit. You're playing with this team, then you go to a prep school, then you go to a college, and you go to another college, then you go to another college. Well, then you go to the NBA team. The 2 guys that got drafted that are griping about where they're going. They've never been held to a contract.
Yeah, Bailey from the Jazz.
And the kid from South Carolina that got drafted to the Raptors. Both of them were like boo-hooing about a $30 million contract. And I'm like,
no, that kid, I feel bad for that kid. The Raptors kid, I think he was just happy. He was like, they caught him.
Oh, they took it out of context. Okay.
He was like, fuck. Like, he was just so happy to get called.
I say I hadn't heard about that. Now I heard about Bailey out of Rutgers.
Yeah,
he was like his agent's like, no, we don't want to go to Utah. And Utah's like, you're getting drafted.
You're bad, brother.
You're right.
Get ready to
You're going to get a lot of great players in the NBA. You're not going to unless something changes. You're going to get a lot of great players. That's why we're seeing this.
Yeah.
It's hard to build an elite player because the mentality of what it takes to get to that Tiger level, Jordan level, Muhammad, to get to that level. I don't think any of these players had that in their switch. I don't think they have it
Well,
to get to that level.
What I'm seeing, and this is just me watching the NBA as a fan, what I'm seeing is a lot of old heads teaming up to try to get one last run out of each other.
Yeah.
You see Curry and Butler and Draymond are trying to do it. You know, we saw KD, Kyrie, and Harden try to do it. Now you see Harden and Kawhi trying to do it. PG tried to do it with Embiid. What I love to see right now is from a guy like Kevin Durant, who says, Amin Thompson's pretty nice. You know, you got Jabari, who's nice. You got Alfred Sengun's very nice. A young core in Houston. All you need is one of the best scorers of all time, who's won 2 championships, 2 finals MVPs. You bring in a guy like Kevin Durant, you might see the Rockets go on a little run, maybe make things interesting for an OKC over the next couple of years. Like that's stuff I want to see. Is I want to see the vets start to team up with the young guys instead of it just being like it really, you know, we talked about the banana boat in the 2010s where it was like Chris Paul, all these other guys are in there in the boat with LeBron and like they're all buddy seeing who's gonna team up where, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, and like that's cool, but like when you start to see as the contracts start to change, because that's the problem. You're not going to see Zion team up with Trae Young because they're locking down deals with their teams. They're giving 10-year deals, 10-year deals. And like, that's the main problem for me right now is when we talk about free agency, it's never crazy. Like, I feel like free agency 10, 20 years ago, there were summers where, man, I still talk about Porter to this day. The Chicago Bulls, the youngest MVP ever, and Derrick Rose. You have Joakim Noah. You bring in Kyle Korver. Okay. You got a chance. LeBron, D-Wade, Melo, Bosh, who do you want? And the Bulls were like, Carlos Boozer. And I was like, what the fuck? But like the fact that all of those guys were free agents, that's fucking crazy. And like, I feel like now guys are signing contracts in the middle of the season. Guys are signing contracts 2 years before they're even going to be up for a contract. Like, you're not seeing that same kind of movement, I feel like.
Well, they're getting these max contracts where they can only afford.
And you can't say no. You're not going to say no to the only team that said no. I mean, Dallas had an opportunity to give Luka $300 million, and they were like, fuck that. I still to this day believe that's the reason he got traded. Tony, I know, or this is a very long episode, so I'm sorry.
No, y'all are good. Hey,
but I'm yapping.
We've come in and took his episode over and trashed it, so we apologize for all the hate and the.
I'm not sorry for nothing. I'm not sorry for nothing.
I say, Mike's like Conor McGregor over here. He's double champ. He does what he wants.
But start chopping this
up. I want,
But no, I mean, I appreciate. I love and for anybody who doesn't know, Mike Porter and I have never all done a show together. So the fact that we just
never met Porter chemistry,
the fact that we had the chemistry and just made it work and whatnot, and this was kind of a last spur of the moment thing. Hey, I'm more than happy about it. All the time in the world. I love the fact that it's a great quality episode. I love doing shows with both of y'all separately, and would definitely love doing shows with y'all together and whatnot. Porter, Porter, let everybody know where they can find you if they want to hear anything. HAWG talk. Mike, in case you don't know, Porter is also, he's kind of a house divided because he roots for Arkansas, but he also roots for Clemson. Yes. And I know he used to root for. Mike is kind of an old Clemson fan, not as much anymore because he really liked Trevor Lawrence. That was his boy.
Trevor Lawrence
for
fan.
Let me get the camera. I am branded.
That's what I like to see.
Look at that. That's
my
true.
Son's got autism. So
Branded.
Yeah,
that's the Bears.
My son, he's got autism, and I told him if he got me a Special Olympics medal, I'd get him a tattoo. So I got the autism puzzle pieces in the Clemson Tiger Paw.
You got an Olympic medal?
No, Special Olympics.
But still, that's
it's hanging right up there.
How many he got?
I've got 3 up there.
Hey, it's 3 more than I ever fucking got.
So more than LeBron. LeBron could never.
We'll definitely chop this up, man. I had a great time.
Tony, that was crazy. You don't think you got away with that shit? I heard what you said. You leave LeBron out of this, brother. Always fucking LeBron with y'all, man.
He could never.
We out here talking about the Special Olympics, having a good time. Like that's so incredible.
You wanted to get that last jab in.
Here's fucking Tony. Fucking LeBron James couldn't get a Special Olympic medal. Like, what the fuck? Like,
a shopping event there. I think he fit right in.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
right. But so Porter, where can everybody find you if they want to follow you? Good
anywhere. The HAWG Talk, the HAWG for licensing reasons. We tried HOG. We got a cease and desist on that. So it's HAWG TALK. We're all over the place. TikTok. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all over the place. So you can find us there. We go 2 shows a week, Mondays and Thursdays during our summer series, but our main show is Monday nights at 6:05 and Thursday nights at 6:05. So we appreciate you having me on for the second time, man. And we'll definitely do this again before football starts up.
Oh yeah, for sure. And of course, Mike, where can everybody find you, good sir, if they want to know everything Chicago?
Man, I'm right here, man. I'm on inside the Hoosier mind. You can check me out. You see me here. I'll be around. I'm on vacation right now, man. I'm waiting for All-Star break for baseball. I'm tired, dog.
A little sabbatical.
I need a sabbatical, brother. I can't. I'm tired.
I get that. And of course, you can always follow me here on Inside the Hoosier Mind on just about all social media and whatnot. And of course, you can also follow all the great veterans and all the great podcast hosts here on the Military Broadcast Network as well. There's a QR code right underneath Mike if you want to scan that, learn a little bit more about NBR Talk, learn about the other great veteran podcast hosts and whatnot as far as giving advice, stories, anything like that you want to learn about. And if you don't want to scan the QR code, or if you're not watching it on video, you can always go to mbradio.us to be able to find that too. Again, I appreciate both you gentlemen coming on. Absolute blast. We will for sure have to do it again because this is a great time. Appreciate it. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Hope everybody has a great night. If I don't have another episode, hope everybody also has a great 4th of July. Celebrate America being, America and freedom and whatnot. And it's been an absolute blast, guys. Hope everybody has a great night.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.